Sports, a bridge that brings people together. And here in the Commonwealth, it's no different. From the gridiron to the hardwood and beyond, we all have a team we love to talk about. Now for the teams you care about, here's Heartland Sports Live with Trevor Rice.
And welcome into Heartland Sports Live on 106.1 ESPN Radio, 1400 on the AM side, and we live stream every single show on ESPN Radio 1061.com. And you can listen to us on there, and all the shows will be uploaded onto ESPN Radio 1061.com. Plus, I share them on my social media page. You can go to the Apple Podcast link to my Twitter account at Radio Trevor Rice, and you can go back and listen to every single show, just in case maybe you missed an interview or something, maybe a segment you wanted to hear on there. You can always do that as well with the Apple Podcast link on my Twitter account at Radio Trevor Rice. I am Trevor Rice. Thank you so much for joining me this afternoon as we get ready to talk about the weekend activities, everything that transpired last week since the last time we had a chance to talk to one another. And you look at the high school basketball scene, just a couple of weeks now, getting set from starting the 17th district tournaments. That will begin 2 Mondays from now, if you can believe that already. Then the following week, we're going to be talking 5th region tournaments to wrap up the month of February and then getting into March. So, man, still a lot of basketball to go. Still lots of games. Have 3 games this week here on 106.1 ESPN Radio, which you can also catch on the AM side as well, 1400. And we live stream every single basketball game. People, you can always listen to all the games. If you can't make it necessarily, here recently we've been having a lot of rainy days. Maybe you don't want to go out and drive in that rainy crap at night. Well, you can listen to us online with ESPN Radio 1061.com. We make it very convenient for you. 3 games this week. Let's go ahead and get into the first one that is tonight at around 8 p.m., It'll be Central Hardin boys basketball hosting Owensboro Catholic. That game tonight at 8 p.m. The JV game will be just before that, and I'll always bring you the update on who won that game right there in the pregame show. So we'll try to go on the air right around 7:45. Then the 8 p.m. game, or the game will go on at 8 p.m. Between Central Hardin and Owensboro Catholic tonight, as we have a game tomorrow night as well. Elizabethtown will be at home for their basketball contest tomorrow. Boys basketball, all boys basketball this week. Tomorrow night, it will be, I believe, or no, John Hardin, excuse me. I said E-Town. It's going to be John Hardin tomorrow night. They'll be hosting Bardstown, and then we'll have John Hardin boys basketball yet again on Friday against Nelson County. So it'll be Central tonight against Owensboro Catholic on 106.1 ESPN Radio, an 8 p.m. tip-off because Owensboro Catholic has to make the trip over from the Central time zone. That's why it's pushed back a little bit. Bardstown, John Hardin boys basketball tomorrow night at 7:30 p.m. Then Nelson County and John Hardin boys basketball 7:30 p.m. this Friday. That's all the games going on here on 106.1 ESPN Radio. So don't miss a second. You can always tune in to 106.1 FM, 1400 AM. If you're not close enough, you can always live stream us at ESPNRadio1061.com. Let's get into this match, though, that's going on tonight. We'll go through the 5th region standings here in just a bit as we talk about John Hardin. They just suffered their second loss, if you can believe that, to Henry Clay and in Lafayette. Lafayette just over the weekend. So we'll get into that matchup and such and talk about all the area teams, E-Town and John, each suffering a second loss on the season. Central Hardin, Owensboro Catholic, though, tonight, as you look at the recent history here from Central Hardin, they are riding a 3-game winning streak. It was a terrible month of December, at least a start to December anyway, that I'm pretty sure that Matt Nickel and his club would like to forget that even ever happened. Then it's been kind of a roller coaster ride. They've had their ups, their downs. You win a couple, you lose a couple straight, and then you keep that basically flow going for the entire stretch of the season. Central Hardin right now finding themselves just below 500 at 10-13, but with that said, still in the top 6 or 7 when it comes to the 5th region. So it has been a down 5th region, Region 5 play here on the boys' side this year, as you really only have 5-6 teams that have double-digit victories that are above 500 right now. And you would look at that and say that the league is not very competitive, in which I would have to agree. Compared to recent history, Region 5 play has not been very good here this season. But you look at the last 3 ball games for Central Hardin. They pick up that win against North Hardin January 31st, and they win against Fort Knox on the 4th of this month, and then they win last Thursday against Barron County. And so you're starting to see the average score that Central is scoring, that they're upping that number. It's now up into the 60s, maybe even closer to 70 on a few occasions over the last several ball games. Because you have 69, 69, 62, 67. So you like to see that average going up because you help your chances to win. You go back to December, early January, where they didn't necessarily have their entire lineup in place. Kids recovering from the football season, trying to get implemented back into the system. This Central Hardin team was barely getting out of the 40s at times as far as the point total at the end of a 32-minute game. So to see that average jump up 20-plus numbers is going to help your chances to win these ball games much more significantly. Plus, the size that Central has compared to most teams is going to help them keep the opponents at a reasonable score, as well as they've been competitive more on the defensive side. Central Hardin has here recently against, you go back to North Hardin, only allowing 53 points, 39 points against Fort Knox, 48 against Barron County. So three strong consecutive victories for the Bruins. Can they keep it going? They're going to need to rely on Gavin George, who's been a beast down low for them, slicing and dicing defenders, getting to the hole, easy transition buckets as well. 22 points last Thursday for Gavin George as Chase Elmore collected 13. Hayden Ash had 10, which you remember a game that we called recently for Central Hardin. Hayden Ash, 7 3-pointers. He can get red hot from beyond the arc. And don't be surprised if they rely on his shooting ability down the stretch to really help this Central team moving forward. So he had 10 on Thursday against Barron County. As Central upping their percentage as well. They're shooting the ball more efficiently. 54.8% from the field on Thursday. 8 of 15 from three-point land. You like to see that number above 50%. Rarely do you see it, but for Central, they shot very well, and they're hitting their free throws. That's one thing that impresses me about this Bruins team down the stretch of ball games. If they get into a situation where they're close, if it's a tight game, and free throws, you're very dependent on those to, determine the outcome of a game. Central hitting their free throws as well, going 13 of 15. I think you'll take that number each and every time if you're Coach Nickel. Rebounds on the lower end, but I think you'll take the percentage of shooting the way that they shot against Barron County last Thursday. Only 23 rebounds. You'd like to see that number up in the 30s, but I think the way Central's playing basketball recently, I don't think you're too concerned with that number. They're taking on an Owensboro Catholic team who, quite frankly, I don't know a lot about. All I can tell you is they're out of the third region, and they're the second best team in that region right now. They have the second highest ratings percentage index score, which is a .559 compared to the .600 that Ohio County currently has at a 20-5 record. Owensboro Catholic does have a winning record. They're 16-8, so they're not having a bad season by any stretch of the imagination. They're going to be one of the stronger teams out of Region 3. Just their last 3 games, you look at. Let's go back to their last 4 games, beating Christian County in a low-scoring affair, 45-42. Then Davis County, 49-42. And then only scoring 39 against Madisonville, North Hopkins, losing by the score of 81-39, and then scoring 67 in the rematch against Davis County, 67-61. So what I'm noticing about this team recently is maybe they're slowing things down, or maybe the opponent's trying to slow things down so that they're not scoring as much. Because you go back to early January or even the middle portion of January back into December, this team can score anywhere from 70 to 85. They're capable of lighting up the scoreboard if they need to. But for whatever reason, teams have been playing very slow. My guess is this Owensboro team wants to play fast. And if Central tries to get into a shootout, I think that they can hold their own for the most part, this Owensboro Catholic team. The thing that would concern me is, can Central keep this shooting number the way it's been here recently, scoring 50% or higher? Because Owensboro Catholic seems to be one of those teams that once they get going, they don't let up, and they're winning games by as much as 20 or 30 points in a lot of contests this season, in the games that they've won. Now, they've lost a lot of games, too, in close fashion. A few games lost by 4, maybe a 2-point loss here or there. Just go back to December, losing games by like 4 or 5. So, they're staying competitive in most of their games outside of that Madisonville-North Hopkins matchup earlier this month. But I would suspect that a very tough challenge for Central Hardin tonight. How does this Central Hardin team attack? Do they rely on the outside shooting ability of an Hayden Ash, or do they basically put the workload on Gavin to not only bring the ball up, but try to create easy baskets for Central down low? Because, Gavin, one of the taller kids on the team, I feel like Deonko Wilkerson is going to have some kind of say in this one. Chase Elmore is going to have some kind of say in this game. Central may need 4 guys to reach double figures to compete in this game, just because that's the way it seems like Owensboro Catholic is. You go back to this Davis County matchup that Owensboro Catholic has. They have some kids who can light up the scoreboard. In fact, Brian Griffith had 24 points in this last outing, 13 points for Drew Hartz, and then 11 points for Jarius Webb. So expect those kids to come out and make a strong performance here tonight over in Cecilia. That's where we'll be at tonight. An 8 p.m. tip-off, Central Hardin, Owensboro Catholic, that game going on tonight. Hopefully you can join me on the call there. And I would love to keep talking about this game, but we have other games here on the boys' side that we need to get into, as well as John Hardin suffered their second loss. We will actually cover them tomorrow night and Friday night. They will be hosting a couple of 5th region opponents. So let's go ahead and bring up John Hardin's basketball schedule real quick, because you look at what John has done recently. They've been in a few tight games, but then they somehow down the stretch with whether it be their free throw shooting abilities or which even at times that has been hit or miss there. They're able to create easy transition buckets and pull away from teams. They beat Bowling Green on Friday, by the score of 66-51. I think I was talking about Central Hardin playing a Thursday, and that game was on Friday. I'm getting my dates mixed up right now. But this John Hardin team winning big against Bowling Green, 66-51, then losing to Henry Clay. Yeah, Henry Clay on Saturday, 66-59. Let's go ahead and look at the scoring from that game for John Hardin. They didn't shoot the ball incredibly well. 43%. That's one of their poorest performances from the field, I would say, this season. You remember going back to December and January, a lot of their wins, this team was shooting well above 50%. In fact, a few games, 60% from the field. Alex Matthews led the team with scoring 21 points on Friday, this was Saturday against Henry Clay, 21 points on Saturday. Preston Merle had 15. Devin Rogers only with 9. I think the big headline, Trayvon Harris only having 4, which he has gotten into foul trouble early in a couple of games here recently that I was wondering if maybe with how aggressive he was playing that could affect them. And I was not at this game, but if I were to take a guess, I would say that Trayvon Harris was more not in the game for the fact of getting into foul trouble than he was that Henry Clay just took him out of the game. Because Trayvon Harris is one of those, he's collecting double-doubles, he creates easy points in the paint, and with his size compared to most of the kids that match up against him, he's just better than most athletes out on the floor with him. So I would be surprised if if I went back and saw that he was not in foul trouble, because I really feel like he is. When he's not on the floor, this John team changes quite often, because I think Trayvon and Alex play the biggest impact roles on that team. When they're out on the floor, you know it. When they're not, you kind of feel the momentum change. You kind of feel the way that John Hardin plays basketball out on the floor changes a little bit, because they lose that size and they lose that ability with the extra chances, the extra rebounds that both Trayvon Harris and Alex Matthews will bring. Preston Merle, he gets the early minutes, he gets the start in these games, and then he's kind of transitioned depending on the pace of the game. Coach McCurry will take him out and kind of implement him there, but he does have the size. Unfortunately, just not able to go the minutes that some of these other kids can. So now you're expecting guys like Anthony Bowen, who came into, who I'm just getting familiar with here recently. He has shown he has ability, but just not consistent yet. And I would like to see him get more minutes, because I feel like Anthony Bowen, who is definitely popped open my eyes because of his ability. Kind of some ill-advised passes at times. Tries to no-look it a few times. A little too flashy. I'd like to see him get away from that, and I really feel like he could be a game changer for this John Hardin basketball program moving forward, especially when we're talking about the 17th District Tournament. You talk about that sixth man. I feel like Bowen could play that sixth man role, the way that he's able to dish the ball, the way he's able to play defense. I would just like to see him evolve his game over the next while, so that when it comes down to the 17th District Tournament and the 5th Region tournaments, if John gets there, you could say that they have strong bench play, which I think Coach McCurry, Jared McCurry, that is confident in his bench in these big-time ball games. But I think you look at where he is this year compared to last year. At least for me, there was a couple of concerns here. Now, obviously, the coaching staff knows these players a whole heck of a lot better than I do, but I was concerned about the bench play compared to a year ago, and I feel like there is some strong candidates there to come in here. I think of the lefty, Jalen Tyus. If you leave him open, he's drilling threes. He's a very hot hand at times when he's put in the game. So I do feel like they have a couple of players who can make strong choices with the basketball when they're given a chance out on the floor and they receive their minutes. John Hardin for Jalen Tyus, Anthony Bowen. I feel like he's going to be a game changer as well. Then you have the guys who I feel like are more, defensive guys, like a Lawrence Montgomery, for example. So I still think they have a good bench play. Don't know how strong it is compared to last year, but I really feel like this John Hardin team, if they could work out the kinks in some of these bigger matchups, they could make a tournament run. I'm not going to say that, oh, duh, that was some kind of hot take there, because I think everybody knows that at 25-2, this team's pretty good. But I think it's safe to say that they can compete with anybody in the state if everything lines up just right on game night, shooting wise, and I feel like they have a defense. They have the players defensively who can compete, whether it be a fast paced game or a slow paced game. John, I feel like, can compete with anybody in the state in that regard. This is Heartland Sports Live on 106.1 ESPN Radio, 1400 AM, and we are also live streaming on ESPNRadio1061.com. With that said, John Hardin having a couple of games here on 106.1 ESPN Radio. We will have their matchup with Bardstown tomorrow night at 7:30 p.m., and then Nelson County Friday night, both at John Hardin High School, 7:30 p.m. boys basketball play on 106.1 ESPN Radio. We're going to take a timeout. When we come back, we will continue the boys' side. We'll get into Elizabethtown. We will get into North Hardin as well. We'll talk Fort Knox in the next segment. And then we'll transition into girls basketball play as we are continuing Hardin County basketball coverage this hour. We are getting closer and closer to the 17th District Tournament. 2 weeks away, people. Hang in there. The tournaments will be here, and we'll carry it all here on 106.1 ESPN Radio. It's Heartland Sports Live. This is Heartland Sports Live on 106.1 ESPN Radio, 1400 AM, and we are live streaming on ESPN Radio 1061.com this afternoon. Glad you're joining us. Talked a lot of Central Hardin and John Hardin boys basketball in segment one, as they will be our games tonight, tomorrow, and Friday. John tomorrow night and Friday night. Tonight, Owensboro Catholic and Central Hardin will go at it over in Cecilia. An 8 p.m. tip-off a little bit later, just for the fact that Owensboro has to make the trip from the Central Time Zone, so they push the time back by about 30 minutes. So we'll bring that game to you tonight on 106.1 ESPN Radio. Let's go ahead and continue boys basketball talk right now. We'll transition into the girls this segment as well, continuing to talk 17th District boys and girls basketball here. 106.1 ESPN Radio. We talked Central and John. Let's talk Elizabethtown, North, and Fort Knox in this segment on the boys' side. Elizabethtown suffering their second loss, losing to John Hardin recently by the score of 75-72. That was a game that was controlled by John Hardin pretty much the entire stretch. John Hardin actually got their lead to as many as 22, I think, maybe possibly 24 in one game. I'm trying to remember the details, but I know they were at least up by 22 in that game, John Hardin was. And E-Town just kept it around that 20-point margin for a good chunk of the game, especially in the second half. And then the fourth quarter got there, and E-Town started to make things a little interesting, hitting their shots, creating some turnovers. And I thought, probably about 5 to go, that Elizabethtown, the way they're playing basketball right now, they're going to come back and win this game. But, and you hear me talk about the all-important thing, the statistic that matters most in these close ball games that we're talking about. Take a guess. Free throws. Fouling happens. You're trying to put the worst shooters at the charity stripe at the end of these ball games. And what do you get? You get games that are decided by 1 or 2 points. Where are those 1 or 2 points gotten? The free throw line. And when it came to the stretch of that game, for whatever reason, Elizabethtown, almost automatic at times from the free throw line, were missing free throws. In fact, there was 2 consecutive trips to the foul line where Miles Fields missed 2, and he's usually pretty good from the foul line, and then Jaquias Franklin missed 2 straight. In fact, there was 2 trips where he went 1 of 2. So just a rare situation. In fact, they had missed 5 straight, I think, at one point. 4 or 5 straight there down the stretch Elizabethtown did. Because you had 2 straight misses from Miles Fields, 2 straight misses from Jaquias Franklin, and then I think Franklin maybe missed a free throw or 2 on a previous trip. So I think they had missed 5 free throws at one point, which you do the math, 75-72, they make those, they win. Or at the very least, you make 3 of those, you're sending the game to overtime, then anything can happen at that point. Players start to foul out, and aggression, fatigue starts to kick in, and you start to wonder, like, you know, who's going to step up and win this game? Usually you're depending on somebody maybe like from the bench to come in and play a big impact. Whoever's bench players perform the best down the stretch in some of those games is just the way that, you know, the fouling occurs and how certain key players will foul out. You just kind of wonder at that point how the stretch of the game is going to go. But E-Town, you look at that game, missed some big free throws, which could have won that game for them. So instead, they dropped their second game on the season, 75-70. I mean, I'm talking about it like this is a disaster for E-Town. It's not. I still anticipate both of these teams to meet each other, not only in the 17th District Championship game, even though Central and North don't want to hear that from me. And I really feel like if they play their cards right, if they have strong enough play, they're going to end up on opposite ends of the bracket. We could see an E-Town John rematch 2 more times. The 17th District Championship game, the Region 5 tournament. Now, am I going to be one of those that says that is a definitive yes, that's happening? No, I'm not going to be that guy, because I've seen these Region 5 play tournaments happen, and there has been heavy favorites that have fallen early just because they either looked ahead, they got sloppy, they were having an off night shooting. And that's what the game of basketball is. You have one bad night of shooting, your season could be done. Where the regular season, you could kind of, turn the page, flip the script a little bit, and keep going and change it up. You don't get that opportunity in these tournaments, because once you are out, unless you're losing like the 17th district championship game, you're still going to be advancing to the tournament, so you're not too concerned at that point anyway. Early on in the 17th district tournament, you're gone. 5th region tournament, you lose, you're gone. And if by some hope, some prayer that you make it to the boys or girls Sweet 16 tournaments, you lose, like we found out with John Hardin in the first game of the boys Sweet 16 tournament last year, even going undefeated, one loss, you're done. It sucks, it stings, but it's the sad reality. And so you lose in any of these games coming up here in a couple of weeks, your season could be over, even though, the regular season, you may have looked like a championship team. So Elizabethtown, recently, after you put that loss aside to John Hardin, they've looked pretty good here recently. North Hardin, they won on the 28th of January, 92-69. We were at that game. They beat Cal, 90-69, another solid victory. And then they beat Fort Knox on Friday by the score of 92-55. So this E-Town team still scoring a lot of points and often. Can they keep it going? They have Taylor County coming up, Bardstown, LaRue County. We will be at that game. That will be a fun matchup. E-Town, LaRue County boys basketball coming up next week on the 18th. That'll be a home game for E-Town. So we'll be at Charlie Rawlings Memorial Gymnasium. Hopefully you'll be able to join us for that one, and then they'll close out the season at home against Bullitt East, a 7:30 p.m. tip-off. So that's what's coming ahead for Elizabethtown to this point. Let's go and talk North Hardin basketball real quick, because they, down the stretch here has not looked good, at least the last 3 games, losing to all area teams. They lost to Elizabethtown. But then again, you look at this; these are all like top 6 teams they're losing to as well. So I mean, I guess it sucks, but you're losing to good competition at the same time. If you're North Hardin, you lose to Elizabethtown 69-92 on the 28th of January. Then you come back, you lose to Central Hardin 69-53. Central Hardin looks like a completely different team than that first meeting between those two teams, where North edged out Central Hardin up in Radcliffe. And then they lost to LaRue County Friday night by the score of 72-55. LaRue County, showing that they are for real as well. In fact, they're the 4th best team in the 5th region right now, right behind Bardstown. So you look at what's coming up for North Hardin. They have Hart County, which I think very winnable game. Meade County could be a winnable game. Marion County, going to be a little bit of a tougher challenge. They're 16-7. We'll see how that game goes. They'll play Washington County. That's a winnable game. And then they play away at Bardstown, who Bardstown, to this point, 3rd best at a 19-6. So I still think they have a chance to win 3 or 4 more games here to close out the season. North Hardin overall on the record, 8-15. Let's talk Fort Knox real quick. Fort Knox, they are 5-15. Fort Knox coming up, they will have games against Bethlehem. That's going to be a tough one for them. Hart County, Western, Frederick Fraze, Whitefield Academy, Beth Haven. Even though I think Fort Knox could compete with a few of those teams, still not the season you would like to see. I mean, only 4 victories on the season, 5 victories on the season. Let's go ahead and look at the 5th region standings now, because you look at the top of Region 5 play on here on the boys' side. 25-2, John Hardin, Elizabethtown 19-2. Each team having 1 loss in the region, 1 loss in the district. Then you have Bardstown at 19-6, third overall. LaRue County 16-6. Marion County is 16-7. Central Hardin is 10-13. Then Taylor County 13-11. Campbellsville 9-13. All the teams from now on are going to be below 500. 8-15. North Hardin. Nelson County sits at 11-15. Hart County 10-12. Adair County 11-14. Thomas Nelson 9-15. So yeah, it just gets worse and worse here for these teams. Bethlehem 9-14. Fort Knox sits at 5-15. Caverna 5-14. 5-16. Caverna, and then Washington County bringing up the rear at a 2-23 record. Man, what a terrible season for that staff and that ball club, especially winning 19 games a season ago. That's how the game of basketball goes, and how the cycle sometimes treats you with basketball players. You can have one good, solid class one year, and then they graduate, and the team can look completely different, and for the worse the next. That's just the way basketball goes in some of the smaller county schools. So, yeah, Washington County having a terrible season at 2-23. As we transition now to the girls' basketball side of things, this is Heartland Sports Live. Trevor Rice with you on 106.1 ESPN Radio. Also, we are live streaming this afternoon on ESPNRadio1061.com. This is segment number 2. We've gotten through the boys' side of things. Let's talk girls' 17th District basketball now, as we got to see the Elizabethtown Lady Panthers and the John Hardin Lady Bulldogs last week, which we saw John Hardin take on Meade County as well, which, holy buckets. Meade County has a player who is good. And by good, I mean really, really good. Let's go ahead and look at the scoring total. 50 points for Kendall Wingler. That is a huge game for Kendall. Shot 11 of 15 from the field, 7 of 12 from three-point land, and went 7 of 8 from the charity stripe. 50 points. I have never seen any player in my time calling basketball even come close to that. Yeah, I've seen a few 30s, but nowhere. I haven't even called a 40-point game yet. Kendall Wingler, there's a reason why she is going and playing college basketball at Eastern Kentucky next year. She's good. And she has the weirdest spin of the ball I've ever seen. I don't even know how to explain it. It's kind of like a backspin that somehow still goes straight and then it falls through the hole every single time. It almost feels like, 11 of 15. Yeah, that's not 100%, but at times it feels like she can't miss. So 50 points last week in the game that I called, and there's a reason why she's the leading scorer on this team, the leading scorer in the state for boys and girls this season. When you're scoring 50, and by far, she is the best player on that team. Like, it's not even close. Dee Griffin does a fantastic job on trying to create second chances, a good locator for the basketball off the rim. But Kendall Wingler, that offense goes through her, and my only concern is if there is a team who can shut her down, that Meade County team is going to be out because they have nobody else who can come close to the shooting ability that Wingler did or has this entire season. I'm just being honest. You can't depend on one player to win games for. Even Michael Jordan had help. Kendall Wingler is going to need some help. I know Dee Griffin does an awesome job on the defensive side collecting the rebounds, but she's going to need some help. I'm just saying. Let's look at the 17th district here for the girls' side, though, as Elizabethtown still is the front runner on the Region 5 play. Excuse me, Bethlehem actually passed them up. Elizabethtown now 20-4. Bethlehem 24-3. So let's go ahead and look at the Region 5 now that we've seen know that Bethlehem's leading with and you look at the RPI, the ratings percentage index, They are just barely in front. It's a .67369 to a .67302. So, I mean, it's not like the Lady Banshees are that far ahead. But once again, these two teams showing that they are the top two in Region 5. My concerns with Elizabethtown here moving forward is their roster looks a little different. Whether it be off-the-court issues, whether it be injuries this season, E-Town really needs to get Sydney Clark back. We had Mike Matheson on the show last week, and he has said that Sydney is looking to make a return, a couple of games before the end of the regular season, so that she could try to get back into basketball shape for the district and the region tournaments. But this E-Town team, they lost some size. Smalley out. Yes, she was only a freshman, but she brings in the size and the length that the E-Town's been used to having. So now you're forcing a lot more workload on Whitney Hay to score, Ellie Taylor, Kara Freeman to start to make us some bigger plays. And I don't know if necessarily E-Town can play as aggressive as they want to defensively because of the lack of some of these key players that they were depending on at the beginning part of the season now who have been out. I just don't know if Coach Sweeney can be as aggressive as what he would like, because you risk your players getting into foul trouble early and you wear them out. Who are you going to go to with some of these players who they've been relying on to produce some numbers for them in the minutes that they're playing? I don't know. I just don't feel confident in the E-Town bench. They're gonna prove me wrong. I have a feeling that's just what basketball players do. They prove me wrong. But right now, the Lady Banshees just looking a little better. And we'll see how it goes. That 5th region championship game a year ago on the girls' side, I could just tell the Lady Banshees were going to win that game. How could I tell? Because they would throw up a shot, it would bounce high in the air off of the back of the rim and somehow just end up falling through. I can't even explain what I saw in that game a year ago. It seemed like any touch of the basketball, the way it was playing around on the rim, would just eventually fall through the basket. I can't explain it more than that. It was just that type of game. But Elizabethtown 20-4. Let's go ahead and look at their schedule here as they have beaten John Hardin. We called that game here on 106.1 ESPN Radio. Won by 30, 77-47. They defeated Fort Knox on Friday, 67-16. So their 17th district play over with. In fact, I think all the 17th district teams are done playing each other for the rest of the season, both boys and girls side. Bardstown, they have next. That will be an away matchup coming up this Friday. Then they'll play Cal next week at home, and then Assumption in an away game next Friday to wrap up the season before we get to the 17th district tournaments the following Monday and Tuesday, where you're going to have the 4 and the 5 seeds in the 17th district tournament go at it, and then we'll get to the eventual tournament, which will begin Wednesday, where we'll have a doubleheader on Thursday. So doubleheaders on Wednesday and Thursday, and then championship games Friday and Saturday, which I believe that's how the tournament's going to go once again this season before we get to the 5th region tournaments, and we'll have doubleheaders all throughout the entire Region 5. We'll keep you updated on all that here on 106.1 ESPN Radio. Follow me on social media as well at ESPN Radio, or at Radio Trevor Rice on Twitter, at ESPN Radio 1061 on our ESPN page. Follow those two pages to keep up to date with scores and what's going on in the games and where I will be for those respective matchups. Let's come back. We're going to take one more time out, and we're going to wrap up our portion of talking 17th District Girls Basketball. Coming up here on the flip side, it's Heartland Sports Live, and it's on 106.1 ESPN Radio, 1400 AM, and we are live streaming on ESPNRadio1061.com. Hey, welcome back into Heartland Sports Live. One more segment here on 106.1 ESPN Radio. We're on 1400 AM, and we are live streaming on ESPNRadio1061.com. We've been talking a lot, and I mean a lot, of 17th District boys and girls basketball this hour. We began with the boys' side. Now we are talking girls basketball play here in the 17th District. And we'll look at the Region 5 standings overall here in just a few. But first, let's go ahead and tell you that, again, tonight, boys basketball play. It's Owensboro Catholic at Central Hardin in Cecilia tonight, 8 p.m. tip-off. The Bruins of Central Hardin will be hosting the Owensboro Catholic tonight at 8. Tomorrow night, John Hardin at home, as we'll have them. And then they'll be playing Nelson County John Hardin, both at home tomorrow night and Friday night, here on 106.1 ESPN Radio. But Central Hardin, Owensboro Catholic tonight, 8 p.m. Continuing on with 17th District girls basketball right now, as we left off with Elizabethtown. Let's get into Central, North, John. Central Hardin playing much better basketball. They are 15-8 now overall. North Hardin just behind them, 16-9. That is going to be a fun 2-3 matchup, I'm telling you right now. They split games during the regular season. Central Hardin dominating game number 2 between these teams. And I think North is going to have a different battle plan for Central when it comes to this third matchup that we're going to have here in the 17th District Tournament in a couple of weeks. How do they attack them? I'm not exactly sure, because Central here recently, they have had strong guard play. And what I mean by that is Central with Monica Lindsay has been scoring a lot. In fact, recently 24 points in their win against John Hardin Friday night. Monica Lindsay has been, let's say, the leading scorer in a lot of games here recently. The workhorse for this Central Hardin offense is going to go through her. And the way that she's able to take command of the team, put the ball where it needs to be for easy baskets, bringing the ball up and down the floor, they got to hope that she doesn't get in foul trouble, because I feel like this offense is going to go through her. But that North Central rematch is going to be fun to watch in the 17th District Tournament here in a couple of weeks. And my only thing for North is you can't get down 18 early. That's the way the last meeting went between those two teams. Central got off to an 18-0 start. If you're North, you can't be doing that. And you have to get Addison Sutton going somehow. She is going to be the impact player that North needs to keep that game close. They need to get her the basketball. She needs to be able to shoot the basketball, because she is dangerous from beyond the arc. Central did a nice job of limiting her and shutting her down for the most part at times in that last meeting. They have to get her going. She's the best scorer, the best shooter, I should say, for North Hardin. And if North does not get her going early in that rematch in the 17th District Tournament, it's going to be a long night for the Lady Trojans. I'm sorry, Trojan Nation. I'm sorry. It's just the way it is. Central, though, playing really solid basketball here recently with wins over Fort Knox and John Hardin in 17th District play. Now they turn to Taylor County, Greene County, South Warren, and Meade County to wrap up the season. That's going to be a fun one to watch. Monica Lindsay, I would guess Monica Lindsay is going to be guarding Kendall Wingler for Meade County. I'm just going to take a guess. That would be a fun matchup to watch next Friday night. Not this Friday night, next Friday night. So we'll see how that game goes. A clash of Region 3 and 5 1 week from this Friday to wrap up the regular season. For North Hardin, 16-9. I think if you were to ask Coach Hooper, where's a reasonable mark, I think she would be happy with that overall record. They had a struggle here in the middle portion of the season, but they've rebounded. They're 7 games above 500, and we'll see if they can continue that. This North team playing much better offensively. Defense has never been in question for that team. I feel like that was always their stronger suit, the way Jada Gregory's able to put her body on the line. And I say put her body on the line very loosely, just for the fact that she does. She's all over the place. She's on the floor more than she is on her own 2 feet at times. Jada Gregory, her and Kara Freeman, when those two were matched up, that was a fun matchup. Now, whether or not we see that again in the 17th district tournament, we'll have to wait to see how the games play out. But I can tell you that's a fun matchup when you have Kara Freeman for E-Town and Jada Gregory from North matched up. They're too similar. They're too similar. Both aggressive, both play smart, both don't hesitate to have the basketball in their hands in big moments. So we're projecting that North Central. It's going to happen regardless. Who wins that game and is going to challenge E-Town? Because as much as I would like to say John Hardin is going to keep that game close against E-Town, I just don't know if the Lady Bulldogs are ready for that big moment. I would love to see them challenge E-Town in that first game. We'll be calling it both games, both girls' games in that doubleheader here on 106.1 ESPN Radio. I just don't know if they're quite ready to meet the challenge yet. Still have a little bit of growing pains. The one thing I do like about John Hardin is they have a couple of 8th graders who are going to make an impact for this Lady Bulldogs team a lot moving forward over the next several seasons. Yeah, you heard me right. 8th graders. JV players making this transition up to playing some varsity minutes. Yeah, you heard me right. Sharon Tidwell doing her thing still. I just feel like Destiny McAllister, you're going to be hearing that name a lot here soon. Sharon Tidwell has been doing a heck of a job for John Hardin this season as well. She had 16 points in their most recent game. They're winning against Thomas Nelson, winning 59-51 on Friday. Coming up, they have North Hardin. That game will be tomorrow. So I guess there still is one more 17th district matchup going on tomorrow. Tomorrow night at 6 p.m. It'll be North Hardin and John Hardin going at it. Then Marion County will play John on the 13th. Next week, Oldham County, Nelson County on the schedule for the John Hardin Lady Bulldogs. So that's what's ahead for them. And then Fort Knox, they are 6-13 on the season. Just looking at their schedule coming up, they have North, Hart County, Western. They have North Hardin tonight, actually. So a 17th district matchup tonight with Fort Knox and North Hardin on the girls' side. Then they have Hart County, Fort Knox does, Western, Frederick Fraze on the 17th. Then they'll play Whitefield Academy and Beth Haven to wrap up the season on the 22nd, which is a week from this Saturday. So that's what's coming up for the Lady Eagles. Let's go ahead and just look at the 5th region standings overall before we part ways this afternoon. You have Bethlehem on top with a 24-3 overall record. Elizabethtown just behind them, 20-4. As 24-3, Bethlehem has still been undefeated in the 5th region. They're still undefeated in district play. Guess what? So is Elizabethtown. Both teams still undefeated, have not been beaten by any Region 5 foes. Both have been competing against some tougher teams from around the state. Bardstown, 3rd overall, 15-8. Marion County is 18-7. Central Hardin is 15-8. North Hardin is 16-9. Greene County is 13-9. 14-11. Thomas Nelson is. As you heard me go through that entire list, all of them winning records. I feel like this year's 5th region girls tournament is going to be a fun one to watch. A lot of competitive basketball will be played in this year's tournament. because when you have 10 teams above 500 with double-digit victories, that tells me that we're going to see competitive basketball this season in the 5th region tournament. And I can't wait. You'll hear me call every single game, boys and girls, here on 106.1 ESPN Radio. I still got to go and look to see where the locations are. I think Campbellsville may be hosting one of the tournaments this year, and then I can't remember where the other one is. But regardless, I think I'm going to be doing some driving this year. But you'll be able to catch the games here on 106.1 ESPN Radio. Let's get ready to wrap this thing up. That was the top of the standings there in Region 5. Players continue to go down real quick. Hart County 13-9. Campbellsville is 14-9. Nelson County 10-14. Caverna is 6-9. Taylor County on the girls' side 9-12. 8-16. John Hardin 8-12. LaRue County. Fort Knox is 6-13. Adair County 2-22, and then Washington County, much like the boys, bringing up the rear with a 1-24 record. That will do it for me. Trevor Rice with you. Thank you for joining me. It's Heartland Sports Live. We do this Mondays 5 until 6. I'll say Monday through Friday. I don't do this show 5 days a week yet. Maybe one day we'll do it, but not now. Mondays 5 until 6. I'll be back with you next Monday. Thank you so much for joining me. Have a fantastic sports week. Central Hardin Owensboro Catholic boys basketball tonight at 8.